Well, our next guest in our white calls Waxahachie home, but this transplanted Texan has lived in the Carolinas and even Germany. And he's also a U.S. Navy veteran and award-winning journalist, and he's penned his experiences into his first of a 3-series book of fiction called Crosswinds. And the inspiration actually came, you know what, I'm not even going to tell you because I want him to tell us because it's such an amazing story. Welcome to the broadcast. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about Crosswinds and where the inspiration came from, because it's such an incredible story.
Well, the genesis for Crosswinds, actually, I have to take you back to 1994. I spent 2 years covering a story in Janesville, Wisconsin, the White Buffalo story. And that story, I think I had a total of 48 stories that moved international on the wire, won several awards for it. But during that process, I had several of the Native American elders that told me, you need to tell the story. I said, well, I write for the paper. I've been telling this story for 2 years. There's something else I need to do with it. What? Tell me what? And they said, and Harry Brown Bear, who was an Oneida elder, I got to be very good friends with. I remember distinctly, he tapped me on the chest and he said, when the day comes, you'll know.
Oh, wow.
So I started writing Crosswinds in 2011, and at the time I had no idea what I was going to write. All I knew is that who the main character was, and that it was going to be set in an airport. And it wasn't until I was about halfway through writing Crosswinds when it hit me. Here's how to tell the story.
Wow.
Of the White Buffalo, and that story actually takes place in the second novel called Windspeaker.
Got it.
Crosswinds just sets up Windspeaker.
That's so interesting to me. Tell us a little bit, though, about the White Buffalo and the prophecy that you say happened in this amazing animal, right?
Right. According to the Sioux, the White Buffalo calf woman would return 7 generations' time. And that 7th generation was in 1994 when Joseph Chasing Horse son was born, marked the 7th generation. And according to the prophecy, the buffalo could not be albino, had to be a non-albino buffalo, and it had to change colors 4 times, just like the prophecy did. Well, the buffalo in Janesville, Wisconsin met those criteria. It changed colors 4 different times.
Wow.
And during that time, there were thousands of people from all over the world who gathered on that farm, and hundreds of journalists. I got to meet so many people, but for some reason, not only was I the first one to break the story, I was invited to participate in a lot of the Native American ceremonies that they held, and it was, why me?
Well, why not you? And it sounds like you were chosen for a reason to be able to tell the story in this series of books. Tell us about Crosswinds and the plot and what's going on here, and then as you get into these future books, what we might see happen.
Well, the elevator pitch of Crosswinds is that God doesn't make any mistakes, and when you find yourself being blown off course, instead of getting mad and yelling at the wind, you need to turn around and see what direction God's trying to blow you in. And the book takes place in a Charlotte Douglas Airport when a young sailor is on his way to his first duty station overseas in Japan, and there's a storm. The entire airport's closed down, and he doesn't have any money because he doesn't get paid till he gets to his ship, and he ends up befriending this elderly gentleman in a bar, and they have this 18-hour conversation. And during that 18-hour conversation, the older gentleman shares stories of his life to mentor to the younger man.
I love it. And of course, I always wonder this, because it's a fiction, right? The book is fiction. But how many of your life experiences made their way into this book?
A lot of them. The characters are amalgamation of a lot of people that I've known over the years. The locations, I've been to every single place I wrote about in that book. I live part of that book. I chose Charlotte Douglas Airport. My father passed away in 2005, and I would fly home to Carolina to visit him every week, and I'd fly through Charlotte Douglas. Well, at the time, they had a bar in the airport called NASCAR Bar and Grill. It was the only place you could smoke. So that became the setting for my book. And interesting, when I got to the last chapter of the book, I had this cliffhanger at the end of chapter 8, and I didn't know I was so proud of that cliffhanger, but I started on the last chapter, and I was like, oh, where do I go from here? I did not know how to answer the question that I set up in the previous chapter. I heard my dad's voice whisper in my ear, and I thought, oh, this is so my dad, but it is so great way to end the book. And
well, I love it. It's fascinating. Your writing has been described as flawless. You've got to check out this book. Again, the name of N.R. White's book is Crosswinds, and it's available on Amazon. And of course, you can meet him in person, though, on Saturday, January 10th at the DeSoto Library from 1 to 3. It'll be a great time, and I'm sure you'll have some great stories. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So glad you're here. All right, up next, we have smart TVs and phones, right? Well, why not a house that has all of those same attributes? Plus, it's designed with luxury in mind. We'll have a preview of Platinum Series homes when we return. Come on back.